Hello, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Taylor Comblouzier, a mining analyst at Red Cloud Securities. Today's webinar features MTB Metals. MTB has interests in 6 active prospective projects in British Columbia's prolific Golden Triangle. It is amongst the largest landholders in the triangle with over 65,000 hectares surrounded by world-class deposits. Its latest acquisition is its flagship Telegraph Copper Gold project, which represents the consolidation of numerous historic mineral occurrences and projects. After a systematic exploration and compilation program, MTB is planning a maiden drill program at Telegraph. Today, I have with me on the webinar Lawrence Roulston, who's the President and Chief Executive Officer at MTB Metals. The format of today's webinar will be comprised of 2 parts. In the first part, Lawrence will provide an introduction to MTB, and then in the second part, we'll take your questions live. So please submit as many questions as you'd like using the chat function, and we'll get to as many as we can. To start, we'll handle the disclosures and then get into the presentation. So for MTB Metals, there may be some forward-looking statements made on this call. I would direct listeners to the cautionary note on page 2 of the MTB corporate presentation located on the company's website. For Red Cloud Securities Inc., I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. And we note that this call does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investment. Please see our most recent research located on our website for MTB Metals specific disclosures. So with that out of the way, I'll turn it over to Lawrence to discuss the company and what you have to look forward to.
Thank you, Taylor, and thanks everybody for taking time on a summer day like this to hear a corporate update. We'll get right into it. This picture on the front page, the geologists will appreciate the significance of this big hydrothermal breccia, which extends for hundreds of meters. For the non-geologists, seeing rock as intensely fractured as this is an indication of a big, powerful hydrothermal system, which is exactly what you need to create a big metal deposit. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Golden Triangle. And by now, everybody's aware of the significance of the Golden Triangle, the enormous geological potential, and the fact that the majors have invested $5 billion in this region over the past 3 years. But there's a lot more to come. The merger between Newmont and Newcrest has a very significant Golden Triangle component. Newmont will soon get a very substantial portion of their global production from the Golden Triangle. They describe this region now as a Tier 1 district. Once the expansion is completed at the Red Chris mine, the 2 mines that Newmont is acquiring from Newcrest in this region will produce 600,000 ounces a year for the account of Newmont. Beyond those 2 mines, the news release in which Newmont confirms their takeover of Newcrest, they talk about their 2 projects up here, Galore and Saddle, as being key projects in their development pipeline. Now I'll show you the location of all these projects and in particular location relative to our projects in a moment. But the other point I really want to make at this time is the other majors also recognize now the enormous significance of the Golden Triangle, and they're looking for a way to get involved. There will be a lot more news about major company investments in the Golden Triangle coming, so pay close attention to news that's coming soon. The reason I so focus on the significance of the Golden Triangle is, as Taylor said, we are one of the largest property holders in this region. Our strategy has been to assemble the results of earlier work, looking for evidence of large-scale deposits, and then consolidating the ownership. A lot of the work was done by lots of different companies looking at small target areas. So by pulling together all that information, we can see the big picture. We've consolidated property ownership where we see potential for large scale discoveries. And that has made us one of the largest property holders in this region. Now, every bit of worthwhile geology in the Golden Triangle is held by somebody. And that means that any other company that wants to get a position in the Golden Triangle has to come through an existing property holder, a company like MTB. So switching to the corporate picture here for a moment, our our share count is getting up there, I have to admit, but we still have a very small market value for a company that has 7 high potential projects in a prolific region like the Golden Triangle. Insiders directly own about 30% of the company, meaning that management directors are very closely aligned with the other shareholders in the company. And in addition to that, 2 very high profile investors, Ross Beatty and Eric Sprott, have both over the last couple of years come in as 10% shareholders into the company. So we've got a strong incentive for all of us as management directors of this company to be successful. We have a highly experienced board of directors who are very supportive of everything we're doing, and also a very strong management and technical advisory team. Just a quick note on my background. Geology degree, 40 years in the business. Started off working in the head office of one of the majors, worked in a variety of roles. For more than a decade, I wrote an investment newsletter called Resource Opportunities, which focused on the mining industry. Through all of those different roles, I had the opportunity to travel the world looking at mining and exploration projects and literally every part of the world, often traveling and being guided through those tours with world-leading geological teams. My direct experience in the Golden Triangle goes back to the 1980s when I led a field program, and very strong team of people here that are committed to the success of this company. But the people that I really want to draw attention to, and the people that deserve an enormous amount of credit, a young geological team, bright, dedicated young geologists who are absolutely committed to success. They are out there every day, every kind of weather, flying around in helicopters, landing on mountaintops and up and down cliffs, working for the benefit of the shareholders of this company. And part of the reason for that motivation is they are shareholders, exactly as the rest of us are. Just 2 words on ESG. To us, ESG simply means doing the right thing. We do the right thing as part of our nature. As a result of that, we've got excellent relations with local communities, with the First Nations. When we apply for permits, we get permits and we get them on a timely basis. Now, we've got a number of projects, but I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm just going to focus on one project, our Telegraph project. We are immediately adjacent to Teck's Shaft Creek deposit. We're just north of the Galore deposit, which is a joint venture between Teck and Newmont. The Red Chris mine, which will soon be owned by Newmont, is over here, and the Saddle North deposit, which was discovered by GT Gold and bought by Newmont in 2021 in a deal valued at $420 million. we are in the right neighborhood. We've got exactly the same geological setting as those 4 world-class deposits. Now, if anybody's wondering how we were able to consolidate 300 square kilometers of mineral rights in such a highly prospective region, the simple answer is fractured ownership. A lot of work was done on what is now our property, but by many, many companies, each looking at small pieces of ground. And the net result of all that work is they came up with 35 separate min-file occurrences. Where they saw 35 separate occurrences, we're looking at all of those pieces together. We're seeing one large geological system that just happens to stick out of the ground in multiple places. Now, putting all of this in a perspective, if we take the central portion of our claims and we take the saddle deposit, so the original saddle discovery down here, and this represents the Saddle North deposit on the same scale and superimposed onto the central part of our claim block, gives you an indication of the scale of our property and the scale of the geological system. The Galore deposit on the same scale, multiple deposits over several square kilometers. And look, in the map, the brown shaded areas represent gossans. And like in that photo, a gossan is the rusty area on surface where a metal-bearing geological system has weathered at surface. We're seeing square kilometers of gossans like this, which is a very good indicator for a metal deposit. Now, there was a lot of really good work done on the central part of our property, the area we call the Dock Trend, by various companies going back to the early 1970s. We were able to consolidate all of that information, pull it all together from various different users, and reintegrate all of it, providing a very, very good starting position for the 2 years of field work that we've now carried out on this property. This slide is really the most important part of the whole presentation. So in the early 1970s, that area in the top left there, the major company came in, did a lot of work in this region. They focused on that area, conducted a soil geochem grid, found a very significant area of copper mineralization. At that time, which was typical in the industry, they were looking for copper. They didn't even assay for gold, but they found a pretty significant copper anomaly. In 2012, a junior company picked up this ground and carried on the work. They did a induced polarization, or IP, geophysical survey over the area where the major had found the soil geochem anomaly. On the basis of the subtle chargeability anomaly and the geochemical anomaly, they drilled 2 holes in 2014. Those holes confirmed the presence of a porphyry system. It was mineralized top to bottom with copper and gold, but the grades were subeconomic. That was the last work that was done anywhere on this property until we consolidated the ground and reinitiated work in 2021. So our interpretation of those 2 drill holes was that they were on the periphery of a system. So with that knowledge, we set off to find the heart of the system. And over the last 2 years, we've done a lot of work all through this area looking for the heart of the system. We found a big area to the southwest or southeast of those two drill holes, where we found copper values on surface over multiple square kilometers. The purple triangles represent copper values greater than 1% on surface, and as high as 19%. So with that, we went in last summer, we conducted an IP survey over that same area. We also did magnetotellurics and resistivity, and we integrated mag work that was done earlier. All of that together gives us a classic porphyry signature in the geophysics. And that signature exactly aligns with the area of copper mineralization and a lot of other indicators, including alteration geochemistry. Finding that alignment of multiple geophysical techniques, of alteration geochemistry, of copper values on surface, that alignment of so many indicators anywhere would make this a compelling target. To find it in the midst of 4 world-class deposits makes it the most exciting exploration target that I have ever seen. It's got all the ingredients, it's in the right area, and just waiting for drill holes to test it. So we've had a good, long, hard look at the drill core. We've learned a lot from that core, which provided a lot of guidance for the work that we're doing now. The geological team are in the field. They've been out there for about 6 weeks, and their primary objective is to fine-tune the drill program that we expect to get underway around mid-August. We've got another couple of weeks here. They have a XRF device in the field. They're getting real-time estimates of copper content. And we've had some leading porphyry experts helping us with this program. They've been in the field. We've got one expert in the field right now. And all of this leading to fine-tuning that drill program, which will get underway in a couple of weeks. Now, are we going to hit the bullseye with those first few holes? I hope so. And we're doing everything we can to give us the best shot at getting good results out of those first few holes. But whatever we get from those holes, we know there's something down there. And those holes will provide guidance that will lead us toward that discovery. Look, to have so much copper on surface and all of the other indicators and the geophysical signature as strong as it is, and it would be a freak of nature to have all of those indicators and not have something significant at depth. We know it's down there, and we're systematically working toward, delineating whatever it is that's down there. Now, beyond that first target on the dock trend, we've got a lot of other targets that we've identified. Very extensive property position. We've got a big property. We've got a lot of targets. We've got a lot of potential. And we will continue to systematically work through this. So, in summary, we've got the Telegraph project, a highly prospective target in the right area. We also have 6 other projects. And just touching very briefly on one of them, our joint venture partner at Red Cliff carried out a drill program recently at Red Cliff. We recently announced the first set of assays. Those assays included 2 meters of 26 grams of gold per ton. So something significant there as well. We've got another 11 drill holes that are in the lab or on the way to the lab. So we'll have more news coming fairly shortly for the Red Cliff project. We will be drilling on this project soon. In summary, we're in the right neighborhood. We've got the right geology. We've got exactly the same geology as on the on 4 nearby world-class deposits, and we're moving it forward quickly. We're going to be drilling in mid-August, and we'll see what we get from there. So it just before turning it back over for questions, I want to just touch on a couple of other points here very quickly. And the first one is the fundamentals for copper. With the electrification going on around the world and green energy and all the rest of it, one of the leading metal advisory groups, S&P Global, is forecasting a doubling of demand for copper between now and 2035. The major mining companies are scrambling to find new sources of copper to meet that growing demand. And the other general comment that I would make is the resource markets are notoriously cyclical. And we're at the low point on a cycle right now. Nobody cares about resources. But no matter how gloomy the resource markets are, they always come back. They always have, they always will. The world needs metals, and that's not going to stop. Fortunes are made by investors that take advantage of these market cycles. They come in at a low point, at a time like this when no one cares about the resource markets. And then they sell at the high, at the time when other investors are the most enthusiastic buyers, or they wait for a takeover. So a company like MTB, we're badly beaten up at the moment. The share price is way down. We've got great news coming, and it's a tremendous buying opportunity for anybody that takes a longer-term perspective on the metal markets. So with that, Taylor, I'll turn it back over to you and any questions.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Lawrence, for the great presentation. So now we'll turn to the Q&A portion of the webinar. Just a reminder to everybody on the line that you can type your questions into the chat at any point. That said, we have some in already. The first one, just wondering about the August drill program. How many holes are you planning?
We've budgeted about 3,000 meters, and we've got the team up there. They're arguing well into every day, discussing the strategy. We can do several shallower holes, or we can do a couple of deeper holes and a couple of shallower holes. We'll resolve all of that over the next couple of weeks, but the budget is for about 3,000 meters of drilling in total.
Okay, and is there any, at this point, it might be under discussion still, as you just mentioned, but is there any idea on distribution between Doc and the other prospects?
Well, not sure yet. We would sure like to get at least one hole into each of Strata and Doc to give us the first look at the third dimension, but we may opt just to keep the focus on Doc at this point, because it's the most advanced of the various targets.
Great. Okay. Another question here. Just wondering how deep were the two 2014 holes that were drilled?
They were about 450 meters, and actually the best grades came at the bottoms of the hole. So that's part of the rationale for having at least one of the holes, maybe a couple of the holes, going 700 or 800 meters.
Right. Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Okay. So to get to this point of drilling, I guess what has been your most useful exploration tool, and where have you gotten your most bang for your buck?
Well, the short answer to that is all of the above. And, you know, the IP gave us a very strong chargeability anomaly. The surface samples have certainly shown an extensive area with copper mineralization. We're also looking at the structural features. We're using alteration geochemistry. So we're using shortwave infrared spectroscopy. We've also used satellite hyperspectral. The most important part of it is integrating all of these indicators. And we've had experts at MDRU, at UBC helping us, and we've got the Geological Survey of Canada, one of their geochemical experts has also had a lot of involvement in this. It's a big system, and most likely there's a number of porphyry centers. Part of that is each one of the successive phases of intrusion tends to kind of overprint the previous ones. So it's taking a lot of very sophisticated science, but it's coming together, and the integration of all of these techniques is giving us, it's beginning to show up as a clear picture.
Great. Okay. And you know, I guess with this system, you know, being in an alkaline porphyry, is that, you know, appreciation understood, I guess, by the market and kind of differences and how you've gone about your approach?
Not entirely. Alkaline systems are different than the classic or the calc alkaline. And the alteration patterns are not as extensive. We think we've got both. We certainly have areas that have a strong alkalic affinity. We have other areas that have the alkalic affinity. So we're looking at it. We certainly see it with open eyes. But you're absolutely right. And other explorers in this region that are focused on the alkalic type deposits are not getting recognition because the alkalic model is not as well understood as the calc-alkalic.
Perfect. Okay. Okay, we've had a couple more questions come in here. Just wondering, you know, have you been in discussion with Teck or Newmarket regarding telegraph? What's the appetite of the majors right now?
The majors are doing everything they can to get a toehold in the triangle. And as I said earlier, the Newmont-Newcrest merger has a very significant Golden Triangle component. Other companies are very active in the region. They've had geologists that have been working up there for a long time. We've had discussions with all of the majors. It's too early for them you know, to make a big investment. We don't want to do a classic option agreement at this stage because we'd be giving up way too much for the benefit we'd get out of it. They're watching very closely, and as we get results in this drill program, I suspect we're going to be getting some phone calls.
Right. So from that, I guess the point that you would contemplate a potential partnership in some manner would be post discovery of something material. Potentially.
Yeah. Yes. We'd like to get far enough along that we can demonstrate a tangible value for what we have. You know, so using GT Gold again as an analogy of our business model, it was 4 years from listing as a public company to the takeover by Newmont. And we're now heading into our third year in the Telegraph project. So, and again, using that analogy, the takeover value for GT Gold was 40 times where MTB is currently trading. So a lot of upside potential between here and the point that we demonstrate a significant deposit.
Right. Okay. And we have another question here. You made a comment that admittedly the share count is getting high, but you still feel the company is undervalued on a per share basis. But why is it undervalued?
Well, I can make an argument that any one of our 7 projects could justify the current market value of this company. That these are all projects with large-scale discovery potential, and something as extensive as the Telegraph project that has so much evidence of a large-scale porphyry deposit and being in that neighborhood, it certainly deserves a valuation at least where we are now, and that value will increase as we continue to add knowledge to the geological model.
Perfect. We have a question here that's been answered a few times. Just the 3,000 meter drill program starts in roughly mid-August is what you were guiding to earlier, correct?
That is correct. Everything is set up. We've got the pad builder scheduled to come on very soon. We're all the permitting and everything else is already in place. The driller is scheduled to bring the drill on around mid-August, and we've got until end of October comfortably to be drilling in this project.
Perfect. Okay, so I don't see any other questions that have come in here. So I'll give you kind of the last word if you have any final thoughts, and we'll put out a last call for any final questions. But if not, we'll wrap up after that. So I'll give you the last word for a moment.
It is a truly exciting project, and I'm sure everybody on this call has heard 100 different exploration companies talking about the greatest exploration project ever. But look, we're in the Golden Triangle. We're in the same neighborhood as 4 world-class deposits. We've got exactly the same geology as those 4 deposits. We've had a lot of work done previously that support the geological model of a big intrusion here, a big porphyry system. We've got the work that we've done recently that's shown square kilometers. One of the biggest copper soil anomalies that I've ever come across. And I had that comment from another one of our experts that was on this project. So much evidence pointing to this being a large system and moving it systematically toward delineating that system. So.
Perfect. Okay, so I don't see any other questions that have come in. You know, I think that's been a great Q&A session. So with that, I think we'll wrap up. And I would like to thank Lawrence from MTB Metals for taking the time today to host a webinar with Red Cloud Securities. And thank you to everybody on the line for tuning in with us today.
Thank you. And look, anybody, reach out anytime for a one-on-one discussion or email exchange, telephone call, whatever you want. I'm here to answer your questions and provide any further details. Thank you.